All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, this lesson is going to be about the start of three. We're going to talk about communism, socialism, and capitalism. Okay. We're going to get into that today. Let's go and get started. So, the objective today, we're going to analyze what communism really means. We're going to examine how communism became popular amongst poor and middle class people around the world. And then we're going to create an argument on whether the people will ever rise up and overthrow the 1%, meaning the very ultra rich and the owners of a lot of property and companies and things like that. Okay, so here is your warm up picture. Now, the question I'm asking you is this: to analyze the picture and tell me are the differences you see between the trickle down theory and the trickle up practice. Okay, so there's a dividing line between the two. Um, what do you notice? Okay, so look at each level. I even give you a little hint on the worksheet to kind of help you out a little bit. So tell me, what do you notice and explain? Okay, so pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. So, we're going to examine three major systems of economics. Now, I get this every year. Students tell me, well, what are we talking about economics for? This is government class. Well, believe it or not, government and economics kind of really goes hand in hand because a lot of times, depending on what kind of government you have, that's the kind of economic system you are going to take on. And so the three major ones are communism, socialism, and capitalism. We're going to be focusing on communism today, okay? And then we'll get into socialism and capitalism. And yes, despite what some people say, there is a difference between communism and socialism, okay? Now, there are three major decisions that every one of these three economic systems um, basically they had decisions to make. Number one is what and how much should be produced. Okay. The second one is how goods and services should be produced. How should they be made? Should they be made by hand, by robotics, things like that? And then who gets these goods and services? So, where does who should get access to it? Should it be available for everyone, select few, those who can pay for it, afford it, so that's what we're talking about. All right, so that guy you see up on top there, that is Karl Marx. He is a German philosopher and a writer, and he is also the father of communism. Okay, this is the guy who basically thought it up. He was, at the time, was a socialist who advocated violent revolution. Basically his thinking was, you know, talking is okay, but sometimes you really got to kick people in the teeth to get their attention, and that's what he was saying about communism. To go from a change from capitalism or socialism to communism, there's going to have to be a revolt, a revolution. So he said he believed that capitalism would collapse. The way things are going, the way it's run. He goes, eventually, maybe not today, tomorrow, maybe not even 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now, but eventually along the line, it would collapse. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. Okay. So he wrote his ideas down in 1848 in a manifesto called, or a pamphlet called the Communist Manifesto. Okay. And then later on, he wrote a book called Capital. And yes, that is the way you're supposed to spell it in German. Okay, you didn't. It's not a misspelling. You know, they start with a K instead of a C. He also believed that industrial nations, the population is divided into two groups. Okay, the first one is the bourgeoisie. So if you ever heard that term bougie, that's where it came from. Okay, and he says the bourgeoisie are the people who own the means of production. They own the land, they own the resources, they own it all. And then there's the workers who do all the work, produce the goods and services and some of that. So you got the owners and then you got the workers. That's basically what he's saying. In any country that has factories and creates things and stuff like that. Now, Karl Marx looked at history, and the way he saw it, the way he interpreted it, was that there's always been a struggle between the workers and the owners. You know, that's always been a struggle. No matter how you slice and dice it, you boil it down, it's workers and owners take advantage of the workers. So he said that as time passes, under like capitalism, you have this elite group, right? You have this group of owners and the 1% type of people. And he says eventually what's going to happen as time goes on, that group's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. But the amount of things they own will get bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where like three families are going to control everything, whether it's food, electricity, oil, whatever. He's like, basically, this is going to be this elite group is going to become even more elite, and there's just going to be a few families that control everything, and then everyone else is going to be workers. Okay, and he says when it gets to this point, that's when the workers will realize we are being hurt. They don't care about us. They just want what's best for them, and that this will cause the workers to rise up, especially when they just want the basic needs of survival and things like that, and they're not going to get it because that top percentage people only want more and more and more for themselves. And that's where he says the workers will revolt and overthrow those capitalistic people, that 1% or even less than 1%. Okay. And then from there, he says, then the people will form a new government, which should be communism. Okay. And then they will decide, the government will decide how to make something, what to make, and whom to distribute the goods and services to. So instead of this elite group saying, oh, well, we think only certain people should get it, or people just like us deserve this stuff, you know, um, he's saying when a communist government takes over, they're going to decide, no, 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 this should be more for everyone, not just a certain group. You know, people deserve to live well and things like that. Okay. Now, communism, I've said it for years, it looks good on paper. It really does. The government takes over everything, which brings up the command economy. Um, the upper level of government makes decisions and hands it out to the managers, and then the government controls everything. So it's not one group of people, not one family who controls everything. It's the government. And basically, again, they own all the land, all the natural resources, the factories, the banks, transportation, buses, trains, things like that. Here's the problem, and some people think that, oh, that sounds great because the government can function at this and that. But here's the problem, though. Let's say oil gets, you find, they're digging something in your backyard and oil busts out of the ground. You think you're going to get rich because, hey, that's oil on your property. Thing is, you don't own that land. The government owns that land. So that's their oil, you know? So, yeah, that's the problem. The other thing, too, is under communism, they like to control not just the resources and the land and stuff like that and the factories, they want to control everything. They don't want you to know about what's going on in the rest of the world and stuff like that. They just want you to think that what's going on is focus on the work, focus on our country, and that's it. So that's why they control a lot of mass communication. Newspapers, magazine, television, radio, movies, they censor like crazy, because again, places like the United States against Russia back in like the Cold War era, uh, people wanted, like, one of the biggest things that Russian people wanted under communism, they wanted Levi jeans because Americans wore Levi jeans, and to wear Levi jeans was like, no, 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 you want to be like them, and they're not like us, so you can't be like them. So that's what the bad thing again, like with communism. It looks great on paper, but in reality, pretty bad. If you want an example of how it is, no better example than China. It's known as the People's Republic of China. Okay, they decide on everything when it comes to, say, building a bridge or an apartment building or whatever. They decide. The government decides, not the people. If the people need it, we'll see. You know, and everything from where and what material to use. So again, like how much would that rent be? It's all controlled by them. Okay, and to be honest, I don't think they even have to pay rent. But with that being said, they if something busts and you're like, I need you guys to fix this, we'll get to it when we can. You know, so it's again looks really great on paper, but communism isn't that great. All right, so here is your question. Do you think we, the United States, the people of the United States, the average Joes, will ever get to the point where the poor will riot and overthrow the rich and owners of those businesses? You know, do you think that we, like the poor middle class, the people who honestly like put in like really a lot of work and you know bust their backs and some of that, do you think they're ever going to try to overthrow like Bezos and Gates and Test, what's his name, oh my god, I just had a brain fart right now, hold on, I just remember now, Elon Musk. Do you ever think that we will overthrow them, that will people in our country will be like, you know what? No, we've had enough. Where we're not gonna work in your factories. We're tired of this stuff. We want to be treated like people. We want our good pay. We want health care. We want this. We want that. You know, or do you think no, no, it'll never get to that. You know, there'll all be somebody else who will take that other job if somebody else don't want it. You know. So what do you think? Tell me about it. All right. So the writing prompts on the bottom there for you. I believe we will or won't you know, riot. I don't know why I put the other won't on there, but okay. Because, and explain. Why do you believe that? Okay. So once you finish this question, you're done with this lesson. Again, the next lesson will more likely be socialism. Okay. So be prepared for that. With that being said, you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.